Good morning again. Welcome to the Herd Consulting Careers in Tech, Data and Digital Where to Start session in conjunction with the Leeds Digital Festival. Welcome to this first session of the series of events we're running for Leeds Digital Festival. We'll share more on those towards the end. We are recording this session, so if you don't want to be on camera and don't want to be part of the recording, then please switch yourselves off now. Like I say, we'll be looking to upload this to our YouTube channel after the event at some point, likely early next week. My name's Jamie Toyne, delighted to be here today. I'm the founder and CEO of Herd Consulting, and I'm really chuffed to be joined by my colleague, Christina.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for making the time in your day to join us. I'm Christina Lovelock. I'm Director of Community at Herd Consulting, and I'm also the author of the book that you can see on screen, Careers in Tech, Data and Digital, which was published by the BCS last month.
Thank you, Tina. And a little bit about us before we start. So Herd, we're an award-winning product analysis, change and transformation consultancy. We're proud to be trusted by global leading universities, central government departments, FTSE 100 companies, and fast-growing tech businesses. And most of our clients come to us when they're starting something new, they need help getting delivery back on track, want to deliver something, or they're looking to grow their in-house capability. So that's enough about us. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to launch a poll and find out who we got on the call so we can find out a little bit more about you. The poll coming up. Tell us about you. Do you currently work in tech, data or digital? Are you wanting to get into a tech, data or digital role? Or if you're not sure, that's fine as well. Just pop here to find out more. We've got 8 votes in so far. I can see we've got about 30 people on the call, so please pop your vote in. Tell us about you. I'll give it a few more seconds. Right, we'll leave it there. So thank you to all those that have taken the time to vote. Got a real mix of people on the call. So we've got some people who actually work in tech, data, or digital already. We've got a good higher proportion actually people wanting to get into a tech, data or digital role. So welcome to you guys. And for those not sure, hopefully off the back of the call, you'll have a little bit more clarity on whether it's something you want to explore or not. So Tina, over to you. Tell us about your route into tech.
So my route into tech was very traditional in that I didn't mean to work in tech. So when you speak to so many people who work in the tech sector, they found it by accident. They weren't aiming for a career in tech. I studied science at university and I had no intention of going into tech or IT, but I knew that I wanted to work in the public sector. So I applied for a few different jobs, and the one that I got was working for a local authority in the IT department. And it was a great first job for me because I was doing project work, doing service desk support, running user training, doing data migration and procurement. So it really exposed me to a whole raft of different aspects of technology and project work. But as I said, I had absolutely no intention of working in tech. And it took me a long time to realise that I was actually a person working in tech because I didn't come from a particularly tech background. And so I thought the kind of working in tech was reserved for people who were software developers, programmers, coders, and people who did computer science at university. So it took me a long time to really embrace that label and accept that I do work in tech and have done for the last 20 years. What about you, Jamie?
Well, up until age about 14, in fact, some of my colleagues on the call might not know this, but I wanted to be a vet. Love animals, always have, just not sharp enough on the science. So, and no one wants anyone touching poorly pets if they're not great at science. So I didn't become a vet. didn't start training to be a vet or anything like that. But what I did do is I had a part-time beer money job, as I always called it, at a call centre for a big automotive company when I was studying for my A-levels. And I like partying, probably a little bit too much. So I didn't go to university, even though that is the partying capital of anyone's life. I think my parents were worried that I'd probably go to excess even more. So I didn't go to university, and I carried on. I carried on working for my beer money job, but full time. So instead of being a weekend job, it became a full time job. So a bit more beer money, still living at home. And shortly after I went full time, they said to me, "Well, you're young, you like talking." For those that know me, it probably will be laughing now. And you're pretty all right in terms of knowing your way around a computer. So do you fancy going around and training loads of people who know how to fit windscreens really well, know a lot about cars, how to use a computer? And I was like, yeah, I'll do that. Got a company car, brand new Focus. The transport manager was scared to death that I've given him this brand new Focus, and I've been driving for about 4 months at the time. But I did just that, went around the country training people how to use this new IT system who knew a lot about cars and windscreens, but maybe not so much about tech. And 18 years later, well, I guess I skipped a bit there, but after that, went into continuous improvement off the back of the program, did a lot in analysis, starting out. And 18 years later, I've been in tech now, having led some of the biggest sort of business analysis practices and worked on some of the most complex stuff out there. So definitely didn't mean to get into tech either. Wanted to be a vet, wasn't good enough at science, did a beer money job, and here I am. So I've got grey hairs to prove, especially on the side. So that's me. So what we're going to do is find out a little bit more about Tina and the book now. So we're going to go on some questions. What I'd also like to do is encourage people to put any questions they'd like to ask into the chat. So the chat is on the bottom right-hand corner of your screens. Please put any questions you want to ask as we're going throughout, and we'll either come to them at different midpoints through the conversation, or we'll come to them at the end. So please put them in anytime you've got something that springs to mind, then put them in there. And as Tina's just said, all questions are very welcome. So in case you've not seen, you may have seen on behind Tina in the bookshelf there, you might have seen it on some of the promotional material, but Tina has just launched a brand new book. Oh, actually, blocking out of the background there, a new book in conjunction with the British Computer Society called Careers in Tech, Data and Digital, from Education to Employment. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Tina, what made you want to write the book?
So I've been really interested throughout my whole career, really, about encouraging the next generation of tech professionals, creating talent pipelines in the organisations that I've worked for, and encouraging the widest range of people to consider a career in technology. And I realised that a lot of people were excluding themselves and thinking a career in tech is not for me. And I was really interested in what those reasons were, why people weren't considering a career in tech. And there is a massive digital skills shortage in the UK, well, around the world, but particularly in the UK. It's costing the UK economy billions of pounds every year. And we need more people to consider a career in tech and to pursue digital skills. And to navigate the world that we live in now, we need a higher level of digital skills than we ever have before. And so I realised that not enough is being done to explain all these roles in tech and what the tech sector actually looks like to people on the outside. It's very opaque to people who are not inside tech, who don't understand what all our job titles are and how the different roles fit together. So I wanted to create something that was engaging and really doesn't start with any assumptions about the knowledge that you have, explains how the tech sector works, explains the different types of roles and the different types of people who are interested in different types of roles.
Hey, thanks, Tina. So you spoke a lot about the skills shortage you've got in the UK and the economic impacts it's causing the British economy. There's huge numbers of reports on that substantiate there are lots of evidence in terms of the billions of pounds. It varies from lots of billions to lots more billions. So feel free to check that out if you're interested in that. But why is the book needed now? Why now?
So one of the other things that we'll perhaps come on to a little bit more is the diversity of the tech workforce, and we need society to be represented in the people who work in tech, particularly now with the explosion of AI, and the need to have different voices, different perspectives involved in all of the things that we're building and developing. We don't have that at the moment. We don't have as much diversity or a clear reflection of how our society is made up in the tech workforce, and that's in terms of a number of different demographics, in terms of age and gender. So we really need the tech workforce to represent the society that it serves, and it's so important now with AI. And also there's a lot of speculation about how AI is going to change tech jobs. But actually, tech jobs are going to change, but they're not going to be replaced by AI. We need people who have the skills and knowledge to use it effectively. We need people who are enthusiastic and curious, and people who want to understand how we can continue to use technology in the future to help with a whole range of different organisations. So I think there's so many reasons why now is the right time to encourage the widest possible range of people to consider a career in tech.
Fantastic, thank you. Emily, thank you for your question. We'll come on to that in a moment too. Before we do that, you spoke a lot about AI there. Emily's questions about AI as well. I think there's probably not a day that goes by without some AI headline in the news. But one of the first things that's in the book talks about myths and misconceptions. Can you talk us through some of those? It feels really topical, especially with AI being on the news every day. And what tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, well, I'm going to do a bit of a Blue Peter here. Here's what I prepared earlier. So this is one of the diagrams from the book, and it talks about the truth about tech. So it addresses some of those myths. So some of the myths in tech are, for example, that working in tech means that you have to work for somewhere like Google or Meta, when in fact pretty much every organisation has tech professionals, and that's from universities, government, public sector, charities, to retail organisations and finance. So whatever you're interested in, there will be tech professionals that are dealing with that on a regular basis, which means that tech professionals have the opportunity to think about the things that they're passionate and enthusiastic about and work in those areas. There's also a perception that people in tech all like computer games and they all like gadgets, and that there's a kind of particular stereotype of person sat in a hoodie in a basement on their own. That's just not the reality of working in tech anymore. It's a collaborative profession that requires a lot of really strong communication skills and relationship building skills. So some of those stereotypes about the people who work in tech are really quite outdated and unfounded. And what have we got over here? So yeah, we've talked a little bit about diversity, and I think we can come back to that a little bit later on. And the one that I want to mention here is about the routes into tech. So many people think the only route into tech is to do computer science A-level and then computer science degree, but actually less than 10% of the tech workforce have a computer science or IT related degree. So that is not the main route into tech. And as you and I have both demonstrated, Jamie, that a lot of people follow a lot of different routes into tech. There's no one right way to get into tech. And actually, this session is called Where to Start. And what I really want to get across to people is that wherever you are now is a perfectly good place to start in your career journey into tech. Wherever you are, whatever level of education you have, whatever previous job experience you have or don't have, there is still a route from where you are now to getting into tech.
That's a brilliant segue, Tina. We couldn't have ended that on a better point. I think let's go into Emily's question now, which is actually around, do you have any tips on how to get through the AI bots when you're applying for a job, especially if you have no experience or qualifications in tech?
So I'm going to swerve that question slightly by saying that around 60% of all jobs in tech are never advertised anywhere. So how are they being filled? Well, they're being filled through professional networks and temporary jobs or secondments that turn into permanent posts. They're being filled through internal promotions and through kind of specific targeting, people like recruiters and headhunters getting in touch with individuals. So it's really important that if you want to get into tech, that you need a network of people around you who are going to be able to point to you and say, oh, that, you know, I met this person at this event, they seem really good, they seem really enthusiastic, they seem really engaged. Let's think about that person, let's bring them in. So the human connection is still so important in terms of getting a job in tech and even getting a first job. So what I would say is that if you're struggling with those things about feeling like I'm applying for so many jobs and I'm not hearing back, or I think I'm being screened out by AI, really kind of lean into that human factor and think about attending events like this and thinking about face-to-face and in-person events as well, using LinkedIn to create a network of people, because there are lots of great opportunities in tech and great organizations want to connect with great people. So there's real opportunity there. In terms of the actual AI issue, make sure that you are tailoring your application, whether that's your CV or an application to the job, thinking about some of the words that appear in the job description and thinking about how you can frame your skills and experience to be really relevant for that job. That means that you can't just have one CV that you're using to apply for multiple jobs. It is extra work, but it's worth it, because when it does get in front of a real person, well, hopefully it'll get you through that screening process. And when it does get in front of a real person, they can see that you put that effort in, and that's going to set you apart from the people who haven't bothered to tailor, to think about the role, to think about the things that that organisation are really looking for. There's so much information about the organisations that are recruiting that's out there. So things like their values and their strategy. What resonates with you? Why do you want to work for that organisation? Make it really clear why you're choosing them and make it easier for them to choose you.
Brilliant, thank you, Tina. And I'd just like to add to your first point in your response there as well, around building your network and attending different events, because you never know who you might meet. I know at least one head of digital and tech recruitment I can see on this call today, so I won't name who they are, but they do come to events like this. They do go to in-person events. It's really, really important to network and build up your connections, whether you're already in tech and looking to progress and develop, or whether you're wanting to get into tech for the first time. I can see we've got another question that's come through, and I think it feels really relevant. It's more narrowly about one profession that exists in digital data and tech called business analyst. It's one that's probably close to Tina and mine, our hearts and experience, as well as maybe some of the other people on the call too. But the question's from MC. Do you have any tips on getting a first job as a business analyst?
Mm-hmm. Well, the good thing about business analysis is that you can apply it to whatever job you're currently in. So you can think about process improvement, more efficient ways of working, building relationships, and all of these things add up to transferable skills that you can talk about when you come to apply for a BA role. I also really encourage looking at networks like the IIBA and using their events that they put on. They also have a mentoring scheme. So individual professions usually have some kind of professional body that you can use as a way of learning more about that profession, and they will have absolutely loads of resources on advice on exactly that topic. But what I would specifically say is think about your transferable skills. If you don't have a BA role on your CV yet, think about how, in whatever kind of role you're in. So, I mean, I worked at Sainsbury's when I was at university, but that gave me loads of transferable skills to talk about things like customer services, understanding customer needs, and improving processes and making places a better place to work. So there's loads of things you can do like that. The apprenticeship route is a great route into not just business analysis, but a range of digital roles. So if you haven't thought about apprenticeships, or you thought, oh, maybe they're not for me, or maybe I'm too old, there is no age limit on apprenticeships. Anybody can look at digital apprenticeships and the employees that are hiring digital apprentices, because that is a great route in as well.
Brilliant, thank you, Tina. I'll add one more thing, or two things actually. One, echoing the apprenticeship route, it's a brilliant route into business analysis. That apprenticeships exist for many other digital and tech professions too, so it's worth checking those out if you're considering a career that isn't in business analysis but something else. The second thing I would say is there's also a great network called Young Business Analysts. Young, by their definition, is 35, so fortunately out of that camp now myself, but I'd highly recommend checking those out. You can get them on LinkedIn and other social media channels too. And thank you for Adam for sharing the link to IIBA. That's a brilliant resource to look at, as is the BCS, the British Computer Sciences website too. Some great questions coming in. Please keep them coming in on the chat. If you've got more, pop them in. We'll try and get through to as many as we can. I was going to come to one more, and then we'll come back to some of the questions around the book, and then we'll come back to Thomas's and anyone else's after. But Kerry's asked a really brilliant question, which is, do you think age is a barrier? They're a freelance translator looking to change careers. They're 55, and so is that likely to count against them? Tina, what's your thoughts on that one?
I really do not think age is a barrier. I think actually, if you're committed to learning and enthusiastic about working for a company that wants to make their customers' lives better through technology, then I do not think that age is a barrier at all. So I've been speaking to some organisations recently that are actually concentrating on retraining and returning people to tech, people who might have been out of the tech workforce for 10 or even 20 years, or people who've never worked in tech before, such as teachers. I was hearing about one person who had his own window cleaning company, has now transitioned into tech in his late 40s. So I really think that the industry is open to people with the right skills and attitude getting into tech and succeeding in a range of different roles. So I can't write code. I've never been in a software development role, but I've had a 20-year career in technology. When you look at all of the roles that do not require people to write tech, things like business analysis, software testing, project management, delivery managers, there's loads of roles that are really much more about interpersonal skills, collaboration and communication. And I'm sure that you've got those skills that you've built up in other roles. So you're in a really good position to be able to demonstrate those transferable skills to move into a tech role.
Yeah, thank you, Tina. Interesting as well, say about the person who's gone from window cleaning to working with Windows, Microsoft Windows. So I had to drop that in there, I'm afraid. Sorry about that. Brilliant. Thank you for that. Keep the questions coming. Thomas, Busy AI Tech, we'll come back to your questions in a few moments' time. Keep popping in the chat. Just going back to the book, Tina, one of the issues you highlight, and I think it's even coming out of some of the conversations now actually, is around the lack of consistency of roles, of job titles at a national level. To be honest, I'd probably add as well, sometimes that even in the same organisation, yet alone a national level, there can be variety. And from sources like the National Career Service, there can be a difference for what's on employers looking for example.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that a problem?
I think it's just adding to the confusion. So I made reference to a role there, software tester. That's often also called test engineer or quality engineer. But if you didn't work in tech, how on earth would you know that those things were the same? And there might be very subtle differences, 1 or 2 lines in a job description that explains why an organization is using the phrase software tester rather than quality assurance tester. But it comes down to the kind of cultural norms in the organization, where other people have worked before. There's lots of reasons why there's these different nuanced roles. So one of the things that I tried to do is kind of talk about the headline role, which I might have called software tester, but then talk about all those other alternative job titles as well to show people, look, it is pretty much the same thing. If you understand this, you now understand these other 20 job titles in tech as well. So I think it is really confusing. Even some of the professional bodies don't really define what the roles are. For example, the Association of Project Managers, you'd think that would be a really good source to find out what a project manager does, but they have a real assumed level of knowledge of the people that are going to access the information on their website. It doesn't really explain what a project manager does, the types of deliverables that they might produce. So those are the kinds of things that I've focused on in the book. I've talked about what is this role about? Who do they interact with? What kind of things do they do? And what kind of things do they produce? And what other names is this known by? So there are sources of information out there, but this is a really good place to start your research because it says, look, this is basically the same as that. And I think it is a really confusing picture for people. There is this emphasis on software development as being the main role in tech, but I would say that that developers are probably only about 20% of the tech workforce. Most people are doing something else. So, you know, it might be being a technical trainer or a digital marketer. There's just so many different roles that go beyond that very kind of narrow role around software development. So I think it's important that as tech professionals, I know we've got some tech professionals on this call as well, that we talk about our jobs to the people in our own networks, our friends and family. Most of us just say we work in IT, and that, you know, no follow-up questions come back to that, and people kind of get a bit of a glazed look. But that's doing our profession a disservice. We should talk about the roles that we're in, why we're in them, what we enjoy about them, and the other roles that we work with, so that the people that we all know can start to build up that better picture of what it means to work in tech.
Thanks, Tina. I think one of the things we touched on earlier, I can see, is also a question in the chat. So we'll try and take both these questions in succession. So we spoke a lot about diversity of the tech workforce at the beginning of the call. How did you decide to approach that topic in the book?
So often when we talk about diversity, it gets to be facts and figures very quickly to try and demonstrate the scale of the issue. So, for example, about 51% of the working age population are women, but that only translates to 21% of the tech workforce being women. So there's a clear gap there, that women are underrepresented in the tech workforce. But there's also some really interesting research been published recently by the Fawcett Society with young women and girls. And they said, look, if you keep telling us that there's no women working in tech, that doesn't make us want to work there. So stop highlighting the gaps and focus on the reasons that we should consider a career in tech. Think about the benefits, tell us about the different roles. So that's really the track that I've taken, that I wanted to showcase this range of roles, that there's not just one type of person that works in tech, that there's lots of different levels of education, lots of different skill sets and interests and previous experience. And wherever you are now and whatever your demographics and personal background, there is a role in tech. One of the things that I really wanted to do is include interviews from a wide range of people, different ages, all kinds of different demographics and different roles, so that everybody picking up this book could see somebody who's like them, either by sharing their interests and passions and skills, or similar age or similar background. And so I wanted to highlight that there is that breadth of different people who work in tech, rather than to go down a very kind of detailed breakdown of different groups of people and who's underrepresented and who's most underrepresented, because I don't think that's really helping move the conversation forward too much.
And really good question as well from Thomas in the chat. So talking about diversity, if the best way into the market is through forming a network, these what can be quite intense events, do you have any advice for neurodiverse people who find this challenging and draining and perhaps feel as they're being left behind?
I mean, I would say a really good thing about tech is that it is very accepting, and in particular that there is a large and growing community of people who describe themselves as having neurodiversity in tech. So there's specific networks starting to be created for different groups. So for example, there are women in tech groups, there are specific neurodiversity networks as well. So there are different groups that you can engage with. It doesn't have to just be going to kind of generic big networking events. You can find small communities within the tech sector, and particularly because a lot of things are online now, it doesn't have to even be in your local region. And then that's a good way in, and also a good opportunity to get particular hints, tips and stories, and get experiences and hear about the challenges that other people have had who have a similar experience to you. So I would say that the tech sector is very open and very accepting, and certainly some organizations have really kind of built their brand and their reputation on being inclusive and hiring the widest range of people possible. So particularly with neurodiversity, I think there's really strong networks already. some of us were at a conference last week where there were specific talks about neurodiversity and the challenge that that can bring to your career, but also the ways of navigating those things and the benefits as well. So yeah, I think that that one in particular, there are networks that you can plug into, certainly on LinkedIn, for example.
Brilliant. Thanks, Tina, and thank you for the question as well. One more question, come back to the book, and then we'll come back to the chat. So keep popping them in. Thank you to everyone that has added questions in the last few minutes. You talk about, in the book, you talk about careers and career ladders, should I say, and squiggly careers. Why is that important?
I think there's a lot of pressure on young people, and they get this from their families, their teachers and their career advisors, to pick a thing. You know, what's the thing you want to do? What do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to do? And some people come up with answer to that. You know, it might be teacher or fireman, or it's usually something quite visible that they can see. But particularly in tech, you don't have to pick a thing to be, because there is so much opportunity to move around. So some of the roles that we've mentioned today, business analysis, software tester, product owner, a lot of people move around between those roles. There is the opportunity to try different roles, decide what you like about it, don't like about it, and then go on to a new opportunity which uses the skills and experience that you've gained, but it's perhaps got a different job title again. So you don't have to aim for a specific thing, like I'm going to be a software tester, I'm going to be a business analyst. Can be open to the opportunities that come your way once you're in an organization. So you mentioned working in a call center, Jamie. A lot of people get into tech through a kind of service desk route, supporting end users, resolving issues that people have. Those are both really great routes into tech, because it gives you customer service experience, it gives you exposure to a wide range of systems that organizations are using, and you can use that and the relationships that you build within an organization with people that are in some of these different roles to say, well, what do you like about your role? How did you get in? What professional qualifications did you pursue? What kind of experience did you gain? And we can move around within organizations, we can move between organizations, and also between sectors. We mentioned at the beginning that every organization has tech professionals, and that gives us a lot of opportunity to try out different things, try out different roles. So the kind of traditional idea around career ladders, that you pick a thing and then you do it and you get more experience and you climb the ladder over a period of years. A lot of professions aren't like that anymore, and I think probably tech more so than any other profession gives you that option, that flexibility to move around, to try different things. And the pressure of, you know, find the perfect job, I don't think the perfect job exists for most people, but when we know ourselves better and we know what different things are available, it means that we can create an environment and pick an organization that's going to be best for us and allow us to be successful in our careers.
Thank you, Tina. I was going to bring that to life a little bit, actually, around squiggly careers too. So I can see we've got some Herd colleagues on the call. I'm going to mention a few of their stories. So just to demonstrate that. So Sinead and Connor both started out in one digital and tech profession. So both started out in software testing, and then I've gone into business analysis over different timeframes. But I've gone into business analysis. Myself and Scott have done project management in the past and delivery, but don't do that now. So I'm very much in business analysis and business architecture. Scott is very much in product these days, and but we've both had those roles in the past. So that squiggly career is very much more the norm than not. So this is a very common thing that exists in the world that we work in. So I thought I'd just give a few examples there. We've got quite a few questions. We've got just under 10 minutes left, so we're going to try and get through as many as we can on the chat. There's a question in from Busy AI Tech. I suspect that's not the real name, but if you want to put me on there and now we can name check you. Hi, he says, how best can you integrate sales experience in the banking industry with AI, data science, and machine learning engineering roles? So very niche question. I'm not sure I've got a response to that one, but Tina, have you got anything that you'd like to add?
I think there's a lot in there. So if you've got sales experience and banking sector experience, then those are really strong things to have on your CV. And there will be a lot of organisations that are interested in people with that type of experience. In terms of specific roles around AI, data science and machine learning, those are all growth roles. So we've mentioned apprenticeships already. There are apprenticeships in all of those areas. And a lot of organisations are looking to grow their capability in things like data science and machine learning. So think about entry level roles in those areas, and think about how the experience of those sectors that you've got around sales and around banking, what kind of organisations are going to be interested in that experience, and then look at the types of roles that they're offering. But I'd also say look for people who are in those roles, in the types of organisations that you're interested in. So who's a data scientist, who's head of data science in the organisations that you're interested in. Connect with them, ask them questions. People who are on LinkedIn are usually very happy to engage and provide kind of advice or recommended reading or signpost to events that they're aware of. So again, it comes back to that human connection. Find people who are in the positions that you'd like to be in, that you'd aspire to, and see what you can learn from them. Even if you don't directly engage with them, you can see the kind of things that they are posting about, the kind of events that they're attending, the kind of conversations that they're having with other professionals, and all of those things give you little hints and tips of things to go away and research and read up on.
Thanks, Tina. And thanks to Caroline as well, has also made a really brilliant point. The financial services like to recruit people with previous financial services experience. So true, and actually true of other sectors too. So thank you both for that. Other questions we've got in. So we've got a question from Coyote. It says, what are some of the entry-level roles in tech that you will recommend? I'd like to start off answering one little bit around that, if that's okay, Tina. I'll hand off to you after, which is when I've been building teams and stuff in the past, when we're looking for entry-level talent, one of the things I would say is focus on the 3 C's. So 3 C's being, are you collaborative? So in tech, you have to work with people. So if you're already working a job or have experience of working with people and are collaborative by nature, really mention that and dial up on that. And I think that's something which, you'd be surprised how important it is in the world of digital data and tech. The second C is communication. So if you already communicate to people, if you're working in Sainsbury's, you're communicating with people, you're communicating with colleagues, with customers, maybe with suppliers, delivery people, whatever it may be. And the third thing, which is just as important, is curious, having that curiosity. And I think most people who work in digital tech careers, regardless of what profession they work in, would probably identify themselves as being having curiosity in what they're working in, and curiosity in different roles that exist, and curiosity in how the organization works and why it exists. And if you possess those 3 things, I think they're a really solid foundation that you can bring from any background into almost any digital tech or data role that exists. But more narrowly, what are some of the entry-level roles in tech that you'd recommend, Tina?
I think entry-level roles in tech, there's much more of them than there were even 5 or 10 years ago. Organisations are more committed to developing their own talent pipelines. They're not just looking to other organisations to steal senior professionals all the time. So you're not just always seeing roles like senior network engineer and network architects and that kind of thing. We are seeing more junior roles as well. So roles that actually do have the word junior in, or associate or apprentice. So look out for some of those keywords that gives the indication that this is a role where the organisation is going to support your development. The roles that I mentioned before around support desks and call centres, those are really good ways to learn a lot about different systems that exist within an organisation and build up that business knowledge very quickly, and also experience of customer service. A lot of different project roles now have entry-level roles, so you can get kind of junior project manager, junior BA, junior tester roles. And what I would also say is that if you work with recruitment agencies, a lot of them fill those kind of roles on a temporary basis that might be kind of either in weeks or months, but they can turn into permanent roles in organisations once you've got some good experience and made some good relationships and connections.
Brilliant, thank you. Thank you. There's tons of roles out there, and I mean this book is a great starting point, but obviously other online resources available too. But do check those out and see what looks of interest for you and your background, and if you know anyone in your family, your friends, your neighbours who do a digital tech role, ask them about it. Ask them how they find it and what they like about it, and how they recommend getting into that particular profession if they were starting out again. I'm just going to quickly bring up Connor, one of my colleagues' stories, and he's popped it in the chat. And to be honest, I was going to mention it anyway, so you beat me to it, Connor. But Connor's is a story I always quote and reference, and I believe a lot of people in the team probably quote Connor's stories. It's a really fascinating one. So Connor went to university, did animal behaviour, I think, if that's right. Yeah, animal behaviour, and went into being a dog trainer for a couple of different organisations before moving into a testing role for a major supermarket, and then into business analysis. So just shows it really can be done. And the things that Connor learn, and I'm sure he'd say himself, would be that actually when you're working and looking to work with dogs and animal behaviour, the thing you're really developing is coaching skills for humans, and those coaching skills for humans are the things that are really important. Most animal behaviour is bad behaviours are often divided by human interaction, and it's the humans that you need to sort. So I'm sure Connor could do a talk on that quite easily, and I think we've got a blog on our website actually about your story, Connor, too, which I think we can pop a link on the chat.
And one thing I would say is that roles in tech tend to be higher paid roles, and compared to other sectors. And I think that's a really important discussion to have, particularly with young people, but at any stage in your life. We need to be not ruling things out and thinking about the type of lifestyle that you want to lead, not just the type of role that you want to do, because roles in tech do tend to be higher paid than a lot of sectors.
Definitely do. We've got 2 minutes left. I'm just going to read out Philippe's reflection, which is, I think the strong focus on development and development related roles. So we're talking about development here, we're talking about software engineering, coding, some of the terms that are used to describe those types of professions. When we're talking about those types of roles in our industry, it's actually hampering progress. We need more non-tech people in tech. And actually, I know a number of people on this call today have worked in tech for a long time, 18 years, maybe even more than 18 years, and have never coded in their lives. And I'm one of those people. I know Tina is, I know many other people on the call that we have connections with or work for her are also in that boat too. So really great reflection, Philippe, and I think it's a really important one, and I think it echoes some of the things that Tina was mentioning at the beginning too. So thank you for that. We've got 1 minute left, so I think we're going to struggle to get any more questions now. We will try and come back to people. If people have got a particular question and they would like us to email a response back to you, if you can send it in to hello@herd.consulting, your question with your email address, just so we've got a way of coming back to you. And either myself or Tina or one of the team will respond to you individually. So it's hello@herd.consulting. I think we're going to put the chat there. There is also, if you'd like to get the book, there is a link that Tina's popped into the chat. You can use the code Lovelock, and that gets you a discount. What I'd like to say is really thank you to Tina for joining and sharing her story about the book and what's gone into the book. But I'd also like to thank you all for joining and being such a great audience in terms of participating with questions and getting involved in the conversation. So thank you very, very much for that. What we are going to do is upload this video onto our YouTube channel, onto the Herd Consulting YouTube channel. That'll be uploaded next week. So if you want to share it with colleagues or friends or neighbours or family members, then please do. I suggest following our Herd Consulting LinkedIn page, where you can find out the link to that once it's been made live. And please feel free to connect with either myself on LinkedIn or Christina on LinkedIn or any of the Herd team that are on the call today. If you want to find out more about Connor's story, I'm sure we'd be happy to share that too. So please connect with us on LinkedIn. I think the links are on the Ticket Tailor event as well. Yeah, cool, fantastic. Or you can just search for us on there. And heard are also delighted to be running a number of other sessions over Leeds Digital Festival. So this is a Leeds Digital Festival event. We've got our next session, which is on Monday, which is called Community CPR, Reviving the Heartbeat of Your Community of Practice, hosted by our colleague Sinead Torley, who is on the call. She's on the top of my screen, but I'm not sure where she'll be on yours, but waving now. And then we've also got other events around implementing big systems, when digital ideas go wrong, and continuous improvement, and some of the colleagues presenting those sessions are on the call too at this moment. So thank you again. We were going to do a second poll, but I think we've run out of time, but we'll leave it there. We'll stop recording, and thank you very much for joining.
Thanks, everyone.